Good evening.
So far, we're safe.
You reviewed the tape.
What I said was, if I knew they were on, I just wouldn't say what I said. I wouldn't take it.
Sure. Sir. All right, good evening. Thank you for you to be here tonight. My name is Boyd DeMello. I'm chairman of the Police Station Advisory Committee. Welcome to the second community forum for the new Falmouth Police Station, which will replace the existing current station. I'd like to take this time to introduce a few people that will be joining us this evening. From the Town Administration, Town Manager Mike Renshaw, Assistant Town Manager Peter Johnson-Staub. From the Police Station Advisory Committee, along with myself, the Vice Chair Carissa April, Michael Duffany, Robert Zollo, and George Sherrill. From the Falmouth Police Department, Chief Jeff Lowry, Deputy Chief Brian Lowen, Captain Douglas DaCosta, and members of the department's command staff and the internal working group for this project. From our project team, Steve Kirby from the Veritex Companies, who's the town's owner's project manager, and Matt Salad from Tecton Architects, the design firm for the project. From the Department of Public Works, Director Peter McConerty, and several of his department heads are here tonight with us. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out members from the Board of Selectmen, Chairman Bob Muscali, Heather Goldstone, Jack Richardson, Doug Brown, and Colin Reed. Tonight's community forum will focus on the proposed site for the new police station. Since the PSAC committee was formed by the Select Board, we started in early January of this year, and the committee has met every 2 weeks and sometimes weekly to look over the town's parcels that were available to us. Working with the town's administration, the police department internal working group, and other members of town departments, this committee, with their help, has conducted a comprehensive review of the available town-owned parcels. Based on comments at our first community forum and 2 meetings with the Select Board and input from many community members, we understand the concerns put forward regarding the 484 Brick Kiln Road parcel site and the protection for the town's drinking water supply. As you will hear tonight, there are extensive proposed plans for the 484 Brick Kiln Road parcel to protect the water supply. Additionally, the committee will be reviewing other parcels that we considered and rejected and then brought back, as well as a few parcels that have been suggested to us in the recent weeks. This will allow us to provide the Select Board with alternative second and third site choices. The goal of this committee is to provide the citizens of the town with a new police station that can meet the needs of our police department to continue providing the exceptional service that we've all become accustomed to. So without further ado, we'll get started on the presentation on the process of selecting the site. After the presentation, we'd like to hear questions from you folks regarding the proposals. So just a quick review. The existing police station, which is located at 744 Main Street, the police department actually uses 750 Main Street, is on the municipal complex down on Main Street. The blue highlighted area for the police department represents the area that the police department currently undertakes in that parcel. Just next to it is the senior center, followed by community center, the Edward Marks building to the front of the police station, and then Fuller Field to the rear of the police station. Currently, we're looking at a 4.5 acre parcel for the proposed new police station. This display here, this picture here depicts what a 4.5 acre parcel would look like on the existing station. Clearly defines the fact that we couldn't fit the needed size of a police station on the current parcel. The required new police station is approximately at this time about 43,744 square feet with an outbuilding of 4,500 square feet and takes up about 4.5 acres. This time I'd like to turn this over to Deputy Chief Brian Lowen.
Thank you, Boyd. Good evening. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. So up on the screen, we have here clearly the map of Falmouth, but that map designates our 5 patrol areas, the far east, near east, center, west, and the north. To kind of put it into context, our minimum staffing is 7 patrol officers. That's 1 supervisor, 1 officer assigned to the building, and 1 officer for each one of those areas. So if you look, for example, at the far east or the north, that's a rather large area for 1 officer to cover. So what's important, it's preferred to have a police station site relatively close to those 5 areas of town for several reasons. If you think of the police station kind of like the hub of the wheel, and the patrol cars are the spokes of that wheel, the officers out in each one of these areas come back and forth to the station throughout the course of their shifts to process arrests, to process paperwork such as restraining orders, firearms licensing, investigations. There's a number of reasons why the patrol cars would return back to the station. So this is just to kind of put, the blue star is currently where the police station is, and the diamonds are where the schools are. It would be nice to have the police station in relative proximity to all the schools in town. I know that's tough given how many schools there are. Over the past couple of years, we made several attempts to redraw this map, to redistrict. What we would ultimately would like to do is to add areas to the town to kind of break up those larger sections of the west, the north, the far east, and the near east. But obviously that comes with staffing. We've recently done a staffing study that would potentially break that up and allow more officers out in the community. With that, I'll turn it over to Captain DaCosta, who can discuss the department staffing study. Thank you.
Good evening, Doug DaCosta. I'm a captain with the Falmouth Police Department. And we started off with defining our need. What did we need for a police department in comparison to a recent staffing study? This is some of the aspects of how we got to the final product of the staffing study: population-based, workload-based, crime-based, and using national benchmarks. So it's a large study. I'm just gonna go over a quick summary. The Falmouth Police Department's staffing study recommends strategic personnel improvements to address increasing community needs, emphasizing traffic safety, investigative capacity, community engagement, while aligning with evidence-based practices to boost operation efficiency, officer wellness, and public trust. So right now, we have 67 police officers and 7 civilian staff members. We examined 40 communities with the same, aspects, similar traits: tourism, maritime activities, local events, beaches, landscapes, and so forth, as well as an influx of summer residents and visitors. We took that and we dug down into these communities, and we found that the officer to population ratio is 28%, or 19 officers below the average. And that's these similar New England communities. We looked at the summer population, which goes up over 100,000. That increase is more than 200% against what our officers are dealing with. And you all know this, you're driving around town, you see this. So that aspect, using the appropriate different studies that we use to determine how many staff members, that says we should have 110 officers. If we use the national standard on the far right, that says we need 240 officers. So let's look at, we don't want to look just on population, let's look at the crime rate. So comparing again, it states that 56%, or 38 officers, are less than, that's with our department, less than what we can handle will do criminal investigations in similar communities with an aspect endpoint of 105 officers. So then you go into your civilian staffing, we're underrepresented by 229%. So our goal, you saw the different patrol areas. We want to expand the patrol areas for 5 to 8 to increase our ability to respond faster and serve our community. So our proposed staffing expansion is a gradual addition of 19 officers and 11 civilian staff to come up with a total of 86 police officers and 17 civilian staff. Now, correlating this study with what we need, our current facility does not have enough space to support this proposed staffing increase, modern equipment, and specialized units. So that is our goal, to put those two things together. Thank you.
And just to add briefly, is this on?
Nope. mic.
There's one right there.
Oh, sorry.
Just to add briefly,
There you go.
even today, someone approached me about traffic-related issues. It's probably the #1 complaint that we receive at the police department. And I really, the town manager made it a goal of mine, I really want to create a traffic unit to address some of these concerns. And again, we need to add staff to get this done. We're trying, whenever possible, to conduct traffic enforcement, but we're busy. It's tough, even in the winter. It's call to call some days.
Good evening. My name is Matt Salad with Tecton Architects, project manager. We came on board earlier this year to help conduct the space needs assessment in assistance with the police department to make sure that we're designing the right size building for the town of Falmouth. So building on the good work that the police department did in their internal staffing study, we then interviewed a majority of the police department itself in its entirety to really understand what their needs are and understand their operations. We then took that information in combination with the staffing study and put together a comprehensive space needs analysis, determining exactly what rooms in the size of those rooms are required to make up the police station. Now, the existing building they're in now is over 40 years old. Policing 40 years ago is significantly different than it is today. Back then, you were talking mostly just patrol officers out on the street, and you were dealing with more of an arrest model. Today, the Falmouth Police Department, utilizing 21st century policing tactics, is more of a community-based, service-based asset within the town. And that comes with a lot of other amenities, right? There's more compartmentalization between different departments and divisions within the building. Each of those have specialized characteristics and needs to make up those spaces. In addition to that, the #1 thing that the police department needs to adequately provide service to their community is training. Their existing building does not afford the space to provide adequate training for a 21st century police department. And so one of the major aspects of the new facility is making sure that we're providing adequate training facilities so that the officers are able to adequately respond to any need that this community may have. That wants and needs that we develop as part of that analysis initially generated a total gross square footage of a new police station over 58,000 square feet. That included a 3,600 square foot outbuilding for additional storage and vehicle maintenance. That totaled 62,444 square feet in the aggregate. Now, the first time we go through a space needs assessment, that number is a little bit larger than it really needs to be, right? We're balancing the needs and the wants of the department. So then, working with the police department, working with the advisory committee and other folks in town, we further refined that program, that space needs, into what was really necessary for the police department to formulate, to function within their community. Through that exercise and reducing the size of the building, we were able to bring it down to 43,744 square feet, a little bit more than double the size of the existing facility that they're in now, as well as a 4,500 square foot outbuilding. That size grew through this exercise of that outbuilding. We took some space out of the main police station and put it into that outbuilding because we can construct it at a lower cost, building more value into the project and reducing the overall cost to the taxpayers. That is a continual refinement process that we go on throughout this design, and we'll be continuing to refine as we move forward. With that, I'll turn it over to Steve Kirby to talk about the site selection process.
Good evening. Steve Kirby from the Vertex Companies. We're the OPM for the project. How's that? Okay. So I'm here tonight sort of in place of Jed Cornock for the town planner to review the work that he did. He is at a planning board meeting, but I do know what they did, and he did quite a lot of work in regard to site selection for the police station, but actually his work started well before that. He was tasked to evaluate all of the town-owned properties, determine the best future use for each parcel. And that review really started back in August of 2023, and it has continued. It was broken up into 2 phases. The first phase, which is complete, was for all properties that were over 2 acres in size. The second phase, which is ongoing, will be properties that are less than 2 acres in size. So, again, they started with the FY 2023 Assessors Database, which had 576 properties. Initially, reducing by 172 properties that were under the Conservation Commission that had a conservation restriction. That was resulted in 404 properties that were under the jurisdiction of the Select Board. Again, Phase 1 analysis was for properties that were over 2 acres. Again, another screening brought that down to 132 acres, and continued screening reduced from 33 properties, then to 22, and finally 16 properties that were provided to the Police Station Advisory Committee in February of this year. They created 2 categories of properties: dispose and keep. Dispose was properties that could be used for other use, including housing, and the keeps were for properties that could be used for other municipal purposes. And then they further started to apply filters to those. The first step in refining the properties, again, was filter number 1, which was removing the conservation restricted properties that I just talked about. Then the second step was filter number 2, which was a high-level GIS analysis and review to determine developmental potential, or if there are other issues, i.e. already developed open space deed restrictions or environmental issues, wetlands and endangered species. The third step in the evaluation was to understand whether there was other evaluation criteria, including minimum lot size and frontage, the topography, wildlife, wetlands, whether it's in a flood zone, overlay districts, which restrict the type of future development, and when the parcel was obtained, how it was obtained, whether it was a town meeting vote or land taking, and were there deed restrictions. The town planner then generated a spreadsheet with all the properties that had a series of yeses and nos. Previous presentations had that spreadsheet up on the presentation, but it's much too hard to read because it's so small. Then the fourth step in the methodology was to put them into categories of good candidate, moderate candidate, or poor candidate. Good candidate met all the requirements for the frontage, environmental issues, and surface water protection. Moderate candidate meets some of the items, minimum lot size, some environmental issues, and maybe within the surface water protection area zone 2 or flood zone. And poor candidates just had too many issues to be a viable site. So when we got down to the potential police station sites, the criteria that was being used was 5+ acres or more, focusing on the good or moderate sites. The site could be vacant or currently developed. It could be any location within town. There was no site specifics. It was avoiding the Cape Cod Open Space Land Acquisition Program, which is the land bank, which were sites obtained for open space, recreation, or water resource protection. And there was also an attempt to avoid the land around Long Pond, but it became clear that there was not a lot of land that was left that didn't have significant issues. The 16 potential sites each had pros and cons, which we've gone over before and we'll go over this evening. So those 16 sites were handed over to the advisory committee, and we went ahead and starting back in February, put a matrix together that had 18 of our own criteria specific for the police station, inclusive of zoning restrictions, abutter impacts, again, lot size, deed restrictions, topography, and we evaluated each of those 16 sites based on these criteria. And just for edification, we did have the acronyms for some of the various overlay protection, pond overlay protection, the Cape Cod land acquisition, NSA, nitrogen sensitive area, surface water protection zone, and National Heritage and Endangered Species. I will turn it over to Peter Johnson-Staub to go over Article 97 issues.
Thank you, Steve. So we're going to be going through the 16 sites that were examined closely by the advisory committee, along with some additional sites that were identified after our first presentation. Before we do that, we wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about Article 97 protections. So some of you in this room are probably very familiar with them. Maybe some of you are not. This is a reference to the Massachusetts Constitution, which has protections for land designated for open space or recreation. And the implications of Article 97 protections are really important as we consider sites that we might want to pursue for development because of the process involved, the length of that process, and the risks of that process. So the bottom line is that it will take at least a year, potentially 3 years, to go through an Article 97 relief process. There is uncertainty about whether at the end of that process the town will be successful in lifting those protections and being able to proceed with development on that site. And with a project of this magnitude, where we're talking about construction costs on the order of $60 million, a delay of 1 year is estimated to cost about $2 million. So that is a significant factor that we look at as we evaluate potential sites. So a few words on what that process looks like. In order to develop the land, we have to get state approval to do that. It ultimately requires a 2/3 vote of the Massachusetts legislature. But before you get to the legislature, the town has to conduct an alternatives analysis that is reviewed by the Energy and Environmental Affairs Office. And one of the criteria that they look at is that there is no other viable site that the town could develop in lieu of lifting Article 97 protections. Another part of the process is that the land, in order to take land out of Article 97 protection, the town has to put land into Article 97 protection to account for that loss, to swap, essentially. We're going to take questions at the end, so we have quite a presentation to get through, but we look forward to having your questions at the end. And the amount of land that would need to be put back into Article 97 protection depends on an analysis that the Energy and Environmental Affairs Office does about the relative value of the land taking out and going in. So it could be a 1-for-1 swap, a 2-to-1 swap, a 3-to-1 swap, depending on the particulars of the land coming out of restriction and going into restriction. The process requires that alternatives analysis gets posted. There's a public comment period for that alternative analysis. And then, as I mentioned, before it gets to the state legislature, it comes to town meeting for approval to petition the legislature for a special act to take the land out, and then it goes to the legislature where a 2/3 vote is required to take that land out of Article 97 protection. As we go through the parcels that we're about to discuss, you'll see a number of them do have Article 97 protections. In some cases, we are not yet sure if Article 97 applies. In some cases, it's very clear cut based on the purpose for which the land was acquired. In other cases, Article 97 may apply due to other circumstances, such as how is the land being used, what other town meeting or select board votes were made. And with that, I will hand it off to Boyd.
All right, thank you, Peter. So sit back, relax. We have a few slides to go through here. Out of the 16 parcels that we reviewed, we've added a couple additional parcels that have come to us in recent weeks for review, and we've grouped them into several different groupings to accommodate the presentation tonight. This section here of parcels, we're considering the Long Pond Group. It consists of parcels between Brick Kiln Road and West Falmouth Highway. The stars on the map indicate where most of those are. We're going to break these down into individual slides, so we're not going to miss anything here. The first three parcels we're going to talk about are three parcels that are to the west of the Long Pond, or the water supply. They abut West Falmouth Highway, or otherwise known as Route 28, in what is the Wishing Moon Hill Braeside Drive area of town. The property numbers you'll see on these slides are property numbers that we use to reference the 16 parcels during our study of the properties in town. This West Falmouth Highway property, the one just to the south of it, and then one to the north of it, are all grouped together, and these sites were rejected for the following reasons. There's no storm drainage, very poor topography out there, no municipal presence in the area. There are some endangered species. It lacks storm drainage and access issues. Anyone that's lived in town for 5 minutes knows that that section of highway is gridlocked every morning and every evening, and then on busy summer days, it just, traffic doesn't move. These parcels received a matrix score between 62 and 69. The high score on the matrix, possible high score or a perfect score would have been, I believe, about 85 on the matrix score scale that we used. This parcel here is on Gifford Street, just south of Brick Kiln Road. Another one we looked at and was rejected. There's deed restrictions for watershed protection issues, no sewer, there's endangered species, and again, topography was an issue, and this property scored a 65 on the matrix scale. 650 Gifford Street is currently the water treatment facility for the town of Falmouth. We did take a look at that parcel. There was some land available on it, but it was ultimately rejected for the following reasons. No sewer connections available. There are some endangered species on the property. Current use is the water treatment plant limits usable land to less than what we required, and some of the land that we were looking at, we'd have to reevaluate the current use of the town tree farm in that property, so the matrix score on that dropped down to about a 61. Property 14, otherwise currently known as 484 Brick Kiln Road, is another piece of property we looked at. It's a 101-acre parcel. The committee currently is looking at taking about 4.5 acres out of the most northern section of this parcel. This site was recommended by the PSAC committee because of the ease of vehicle access to all areas of town. As Deputy Chief Lowen pointed out in the earlier slide, the core mission of the police department is serving the public, and this road, Brick Kiln Road, is a major east-west connector in town of Falmouth and allows ability for police officers to get to other north-south connecting roads or back into the downtown area of Falmouth. Has excellent road access, and the sight lines in this area are particularly good. It's close proximity to all the patrol areas. Currently, there are no deed restrictions. Again, we looked at relationship to other municipal uses. It's in very close proximity to Falmouth High School. We have, and this was a prerequisite for us on this site, it has the ability to tie into the sewer. The current sewer project the town's undertaking, there's a force main going down Brick Kiln, and we'll be able to tie into the force main for this project, and it's outside the flood zone. This was the highest scoring property in our matrix study of a score of 76 out of a possible 85. This town-owned property is right to the west of the parcel I just spoke about. It was heavily considered by the committee in our deliberations, but ultimately was rejected due to some topography issues. We're getting more of the moraine on this parcel than we did on the previous parcel. There's some sightline issues. It's kind of on a tough curve on Brick Kiln Road, and there are large surface boulders as well as below-grade problems, which was confirmed by geotechnical test pitting and analysis that we did on this parcel and did it on the previous parcel, and we did it on one parcel up. Nope, I'm sorry, we didn't do that on that parcel up there. It's slightly more costly site for development, and you see the matrix score was a little lower than the other previous parcel. This is one of the parcels that came to us. The committee probably had a brief discussion about it back in February and March, but then this was brought back to us since the first community forum. This is the Neal Youth Baseball Field on Gifford Street, which is, this site was rejected by the committee because currently it's a capped landfill, which has poor bearing capacity. It's within 2,500 feet of the 2% annual risk flood zone and within 2,800 feet of the AE flood zone at an elevation of 10 feet. It would require replacement of 3 ball fields, which is a challenging issue. It's going to require deep foundation piers and linear required at the higher cost. Recapping project is currently in the works for this parcel of land. Disturbance and disposal of trash during construction can be costly, and the remediation costs remain unknown at this time. Also has poor vehicle access due to the road hill elevation just to the north. Again, on Brick Kiln Road, it's hilly in that area, and to have an increase in the amount of traffic daily, 24 hours a day, every day of the year, with vehicles pulling it out, presented a problem. And it has this Article 97 designation on part of the parcel, or all of the parcel. Additionally, there's some high-tension power lines that run just to the east end of the property, actually come over what is now the third ball field, which is why, if anyone spent time at the Little League field, there's no lights on the third ball field because they can't put lighting up there due to the power lines above them. Next up is the 233 Brick Kiln Road Dog Park, known as the Dog Park site. This, again, was a piece of property that was brought to the committee's attention since we went public with our findings. The committee, again, as recently as last week, took a long, deep dive on this parcel. There's concerns with this site. It's in the Water Recharge Protection Overlay District. It does have Article 97 designations on it. It's purchased with land bank funds. Would involve relocation of the dog park, not necessarily to somewhere else, but even possibly relocating the dog park on the site. The problem with the site, it's a narrow site and it's got angled frontage, which makes access to the property difficult. It's dual use of a public drive would be required for the dog park. So potentially you'd have to pull into what could be the public police department parking and then go down a driveway to a dog park facility if we were to have to relocate it. Also, we're concerned about the impact of the abutters. There's a business in the area, and it's more in a residential area. And there's some existing stormwater drainage restrictions on the property that is going to increase development on that parcel. 100 Brick Kiln Road, also known as the Augusta parcel, or again, used to be the Cape Cod Drive-In many years ago. This parcel we looked at again as recently as last Friday's committee meeting. Again, we did talk about it early on and brought it back after some community input on the parcel. Concerns with this site include sewer easement through the entire west side and the proposed lift station for the current sewer project that the town's undertaking. It does have some deed restrictions for open space, water resource protection, and recreation. Has a Article 97 designation. The intended water resource protection purpose is for the lift station and possible discharge of treated water if the outfall proposed piping does not go forward. It's a challenging parcel at best. There's some access issues. It's a fairly narrow parcel on Brick Kiln Road, and once you add the proposed lift station for the sewer project at that entrance, it narrows it down even more. And then there's access onto T-Ticket Highway, but again, that access comes on the top of a hill near Falmouth Lumber, and the sight lines aren't very good. And we're, again, concerned about neighborhood impact on that parcel. This group here is the Central Road, Central Area access. It includes 3 parcels on Blacksmith Shop Road and then one a little farther out on Carriage Shop Road. The Blacksmith Shop Road, there's 2 parcels that are right near each other. This parcel is located just to the south of what is the former town landfill and currently the solar field that the town and the EDIC developed a few years ago. The other parcel is right across the street. There's land available here. This is 95 acres of land. Part of the property is currently the town's leaf disposal facility. These 2 sites were rejected by the committee early on. They're a fairly remote location given it's got poor vehicle access due to the roads and hills in the area. The Blacksmith Shop Road in that area is really not developed for the increased traffic that the police station is going to present. It's deed restricted for disposal purposes in some of the area. There's no sewer connections. Topography is very poor, and there are some endangered species out there. Again, the parcel scores on those were 62 and 60 respectively. The Carriage Shop Road parcel is off of Carriage Shop Road. This is 71.3 acres of land. 57 of them are in a restriction, but 14 of them could be available for development. However, we did reject this site. Again, it's poor vehicle access due to the roads and blind curves in the area. There's some endangered species, and it's a 14-acre site that's reserved, again, for a water recharge or discharge pending on the outcome of the outfall pipe project. There's, again, I mentioned the deed restrictions on 57 of the acres, and there's no sewer connection available on that site. So that received a matrix score of 61. And this site is the wastewater treatment facility at 154 Blacksmith Shop Road, 314 and a half acres. The town looked at it. This actually remained in contention for a site for a while with the committee, but ultimately after some site fitting work done by Tecton and Veritex, this parcel was ruled out. Again, it's a remote location. It's off of Blacksmith Shop and Service Road, which presents poor vehicle access due to the roads and hills. Limited area available due to the wastewater treatment plant and potential expansion there, and there's underground electrical utilities in the area. And it's got some more topography and soil issues. This parcel, like that parcel, the second parcel on Brick Kiln Road, which we refer to as parcel 15, gets us back into a little bit more of the moraine that exists on the west side of town. But it did have a matrix score of 72. This is what we call the school and downtown group. It's both the admin building property and the Morse Pond School properties. We did take a look at those again. This here is the 340 T-Ticket Highway, which is the school administration building, 6.6 acres. This was rejected due to traffic congestion of T-Ticket Highway and Sandwich Road. Additional roadway improvements costs likely to be imposed by MassDOT and could be incurred by the town. Is deed restricted as an historic building. There's abutter impacts to the PD operation. It's adjacent to an AE flood zone about 450 feet away. We require relocating a ball field. An historic building is in fair condition per building facilities condition assessment, which was recently completed by the town. It had a matrix score of 59. This parcel here is the Morse Pond School property, 323 Jones Road, 20.9 acres. Site was rejected because earliest this parcel could be available to us is about 7 years once the school continues with their plans on redistricting and repurposing their buildings. Again, anyone that's spent any time in Falmouth, Jones Road is congested on the average. On weekends and major holidays, it's even worse. There's some butter impacts from increased PD operation. It is a part of the property is in the flood zone, and we're going to have to do some replacement of sports fields as well. And the last couple we have here are what we call the outlying group. It's 419 Woods Hole Road, which is the Station 2 Falmouth Fire and Rescue Department property site on Woods Hole Road, and a piece of property up on North Falmouth Highway near Falmouth Woods Road. The 419 Woods Hole Road property is 16.2 acres. Current use is part of it's used by the fire station. The rest is currently undeveloped. This site was rejected due to its remote location. Again, as Deputy Chief Lowen mentioned, it's about the travel time to and from the station. So if you go back to the map that the Deputy Chief put up there, if you're out in the Far East, all the way out in Wacoyet, and you have to transport a detainee back and or go back to the station, you're talking about very increased travel times to and from a station. This also comes into play if you think about locating a police station. It's not so much, it is about transporting back and forth for the patrol cruisers, but if you have a patrol officer in the north sector or Wacoyet out in the Far East, or it's travel time for support for them should they need additional resources for what they're encountering out there. There's some endangered species on the property, and everyone knows, again, Woods Hole Road, it's a very busy road with heavy truck traffic, and there's no sewer connection on that property. 0 Nathan Ellis Highway. This is a funny shaped two parcels of land. One's 3.5 acres, one's just over 27 acres. It's up by the Falmouth Woods Road. The southwestern side of it abuts the Saconaset Golf Club properties. Poor access off Route 151. There's no sewer or storm drainage. There's some deed restriction on the property for future roadway use. No municipal presence and utility easements. There's a lot of overhead power lines similar to the Neal Youth Baseball Field power lines. And it's a very tight site. We did do a site test fit on this property, and it just didn't present well to accommodate the police department for their current needs and future expansion. So with that, I will turn it over to Matt.
Boyd. So ultimately, as Boyd had mentioned, the advisory committee did ultimately make a determination that the most suitable parcel that was reviewed out of the initial 16 was 484 Brick Kiln Road. There are a number of parcels that we did do a site test fit on. This is where we take that space needs assessment, all those rooms that make up the new police station facility, and incorporate them into the site plan itself to make sure that the parcel is viable. Sorry, is the mic on? Okay. Okay. Is that a little bit better? Okay. So we then take that space needs assessment and then put it onto the parcels to make sure that the building would fit, and then ultimately those sites would be viable. So we'll walk you through. There we go. So as noted, what was known as Parcel 14 or 44 Brick Kiln Road was ultimately recommended as the best choice for siting the police station project. One, it had the lowest potential site development cost because of minimal topography and good geotechnical bearing capacity for the soils. It didn't have any jurisdictional concerns. There were adequate utilities within the site, especially that sewer project that's going to be installed there, so we weren't having to worry about septic systems for this building. It was also adequate for the size of the police station that we're looking for, with more than enough room for future growth, as well as maintaining a strong buffer between the building itself and Long Pond, recognizing that this is in the Water Protection Overlay District, and making sure that we're designing a building and designing a site that would protect and enhance that protection. So SOAR being a critical factor in that. Just to give you a little sense of where we're proposing to locate this building within the site, you can see on the screen the entire parcel outlined with that red dash. And we're looking to keep the property development all the way to the north, right across the street from the existing Lutheran church, right along Brick Kiln Road itself, and staying as far away from Long Pond as we possibly can. We're about 1,500 feet away from the Gifford Street Brick Kiln Road intersection and 450 feet away from Andy's Lane. Trying to create a buffer from those areas as well, so that we're not being directly in the backyard of those residents. And we're about 1,500 feet away from the furthest extent of development to Long Pond itself. So zooming into the site, you can see up in the top right, the drive access for the Lutheran Church. So we'd be looking to create a drive directly across from that. We'd have 2 points of access out on the Brick Kiln Road. This way, if there's ever an issue or a traffic accident or an incident at one of the entrances, the officers will still have a way to get in and out of the site to respond to town elsewhere. We'd have a public parking lot in the front of the parcel, in the front of the site. That would allow the public to come to the police station to seek services, as well as have public events and things like that in the community training room that's part of that space needs assessment. And then the rear of the site is where the staff parking would be, with a covered parking canopy. This is the outbuilding that we talked about earlier, and then a small impound lot as well. As far as the extent of the site, we would be limiting the amount of tree removal and development, and trying to maintain as much natural landscape as we possibly could. And then we're also designating a small area of the site to the west for a future modular indoor firing range for the police department's use as well. With that, I'll hand it over to Peter McConaughey to talk about some of the stormwater protection features.
Thank you, Matt. Hopefully you all can hear me. I can put this microphone back. I typically don't have a problem projecting my voice. Please let me know if I do. So this slide right here shows the limits, the boundaries that were set by the Mass DEP for Zone A, Zone B, and Zone C for the Long Pond drinking water area. The area in light green is the pond. The area checkered outside behind that, that's a hatch area with the lead lines going through that. That's a Zone A area. That's 400 feet off the pond. The Zone B area goes from the pond out past Brick Kiln Road and goes up towards getting up actually towards the high school, and then the pink area in the back is the Zone C. So there's a lot of words on this slide. Basically what it is Zone A is the area within 400 feet of the pond. Zone B is an area that's a half mile of the area of the pond, and like I say, it takes it out beyond Brick Kiln Road, brings it over towards the high school, and Zone C was that pink area that was out within the high school. So stormwater mitigation plan, all right? So this is where the rubber meets the road for this project. Let's talk about this. So environmentally, what are the site impacts that we'd be looking for development, right? It would be the wastewater design, it'd be the stormwater design, it'd be the potable water design, it'd be the tree removal. We'll go through each of these. So the wastewater, the project's going to be connected to the new sewer that's going to be stubbed from a new main to the property line. The new force main is being installed in Brick Kiln Road as part of the TASA project, and it's going to be installed regardless of the construction of this new police station, whether it goes in or it doesn't go in. The stormwater, all the stormwater will be captured on site. It will be treated by storm scepters. Storm scepters is basically, it's a water quality chamber that gets cleaned out, it picks up all the sediment. It's going to get recharged into the soil through the subsurface detention basins. And being Public Works and us being basically the mentors in overseeing of this Long Pond facility for Public Works, we're also going to be looking at additional stormwater concepts such as bioretention areas, maybe some rain gardens, some in that area. We do want to look at all options. The garages in the wash bay for the impound lot will drain to tight tanks. They will not be discharged into the groundwater, and they'll be monitored and serviced regularly by the MS4 permit. What's the MS4 permit? The MS4 permit is the town's municipal separate stormwater sewer system. We currently monitor the Public Works facility under the MS4, and this new police station can be added to that facility. The water service, it will be connected to the town water distribution system along Brick Kiln Road. In addition to the stormwater system, the perimeter of the developed area will have permanent water monitoring wells installed with periodic sampling and standard operation procedures, SOPs, should any contaminated or non-compliant water be detected. Right now, at this time, there's no monitoring wells at this time on the site. The monitoring wells that are being proposed as part of the police station design will not only be able to detect non-compliant fluids from the proposed police station site, but it can be also used to detect any non-compliant fluids that possibly may come from either Brick Kiln Road or the new housing development across the street and the proposed YMCA that is being proposed directly across the street. Also, to go along with the proposed monitoring wells, we have our LSP, Arcadis. They're going to be doing a subsoil permeability and porosity test, which will be completed that will show the distance and time calculations to help predict any possible impacts to the pond. So basically what it'll do is it'll take the difference between the pond and Brick Kiln Road, which is about 48 feet. As Matt said, it's 1,500 feet to from the monitoring wells to the pond. And then it'll take the soils, or at least the soils calculations that they have, and it will be able to do, if a non-compliant liquid was detected, it'd be able to figure out if it was to reach the pond, and if it were to reach the pond, how long it would take, how many years, and what concentrations it would have. Now let's talk about stormwater and Brick Kiln Road. So Brick Kiln Road, as everybody knows, and I don't think I'm breaking any news here tonight, Brick Kiln Road is a 75-year-old road that was built up from an old traveled way back in the 1930s and 1940s. The roadway drainage is original. At this time, I'm more concerned about the roadway drainage, about the 75-year-old roadway drainage, than I am about putting a proposed site development on this facility. For 75 years, the drainage has run off the roadway and soaked into the adjacent ground with no stormwater controls. As has been outlined by the design review, over the next 5 to 7 years, the roadway is going to undergo a major renovation. The roadway is going to receive 2 new wastewater force mains, a new water main extension, And there's a good high probability that the outfall pipe will be approved, and it'll run from the wastewater plant to Vineyard Sound. In addition, there's a new housing development across the street from the proposed police station, and a new YMCA that is planned directly across the street. With all these renovations and development work, the stormwater system will be improved along that area, along with the construction of the police station, while the roadway is being renovated. Again, the proposed site, a preferred proposed site, is at 484 Brick Kiln Road, is within the surface water supply zone B. There are very few prohibitions for construction within the zone B, none which apply to this project. There's not going to be no livestock, there'll be no underground tanks, and et cetera for that zone B area. Mass DEP has already issued 2 letters following the meetings that town representatives had, confirming the DE regulations do not prohibit development within the Zone B. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to turn things over to our town manager for closing comments.
Hi, everybody. Mike Renshaw, your town manager. I'm going to be brief because I know I'm the guy standing between you and your ability to contribute your comments and ask your questions, so I'll be quick. First off, between myself and Peter Johnson-Staub, the assistant town manager, we have over 60 years working in local government. I want to give credit to this group because in those 30 years I've been doing this, I've never had the pleasure of working with a more committed group. A couple of retired police chiefs, a former retired Coast Guard officer, a master builder, and the chairman who just has a level of passion for this community that I've just never seen before. So a round of applause, please. And I know everybody recognizes the work that they've done. And they appreciate that because 8.5 months literally of hard work. We've heard your comments, folks, and over the past several weeks, we've heard comments from the select board members. You didn't hear a lot of information about some of the alternative sites that we're looking at right now. The group, I've asked them to vet and do due diligence and explore, dig deeper into, I think it's 3 or 4 additional sites. You got a glimpse of maybe 1 or 2, but there's some additional sites that we're not prepared tonight to kind of delve into. But my point is, we've heard your comments about your concerns about Long Pond, and we're gonna act on those. Okay. But again, I wanted to thank the group. Thank you for your time here. And with that, I'm going to stop talking. And what we're going to do is open it up for comments and questions because that's really the primary reason we're here. Appreciate your patience for the past 45, 50 minutes listening to the presentation. We've got about 4 times as many people this time as we had back on September 25th. And we felt it was important so everybody has kind of a foundation. So with that, I'm going to stop talking, going to turn it over and allow you to come up. Unfortunately, we have these goofy karaoke microphones, and it's going to be easier for you to come to this podium, if you don't mind, to ask your questions or make your comments. We're going to record them all and take them all under consideration. Okay, so who wants to be first? Mr. Netto.
Oh boy. I was wondering who it was. I was wondering what Joe was. You had to be here.
Before I start, I would just like to say, I don't think anyone, to the police, to the chief of police, to this committee,
Speak up.
and to the many police officers here. Since this project has started and the site has been made public, no one has ever said to me, we don't need a police station. No one has ever said to me, the station's too expensive. Everyone, and I think everyone here tonight, is for a new police station, Chief. There's nobody. We're here because of the site that was chosen and somewhat because of the restrictions that were placed or the criteria on the site of 5 acres or more. Great that it was public property. All for that, we don't have to buy anything. And that it was undeveloped, that nothing had been done there. And 2 weeks ago, when I attended this meeting with the Board of Selectmen, I heard that this site in the Long Pond Water Recharge Protection Area was not arrived at the first time around, and that no site was chosen the first time around. and it came back to this. So, I would hope that we could freely exchange ideas and have dialogue and not have it be interpreted that we're against a new police station. I think we can, I see people shaking their heads, yes. We're here because we have an environmental concern. Falmouth produced a land bank in 1986, if I'm not mistaken. We were ahead of many towns in the state of Massachusetts. We banned plastic bottles. We have a deep, I'm an elected town meeting member. I've had people tell me, come up to me, what are you going to do to protect our watershed? And those of us that are here tonight that have an interest, I do feel that that's what we're here for. We want to protect the land that we refer to as the Town of Falmouth and the Long Pond Water Protection Site. Catherine Bumpus put out an email with all the sites that we've purchased in the last 30, 40 years, which many of us, including myself, had voted on. And every one of those parcels that we voted on since 1980, we slapped a water restriction covenant on them because we bought the land to protect that. Now you're going to say, well, that was before the sewers. That was before, better environmental engineering. Yes, I agree with that. But if we could find another site that's away from here, it's a no-brainer then. So I would please not reflect on any speakers coming forth. No one should feel intimidated to speak here tonight. You know, Chief, it's a hard group to sometimes get in front of a bunch of law enforcement officials.
We're very nice.
Huh?
We're very nice.
But we'll do this because dialogue is good. Every time you talk to someone, you learn something. You get a different point of view. All right. Well, after reading, I had not planned to say that before I came to this podium tonight, but after hearing, and this is my third, I had the luxury of meeting with this committee in the chief's office because I had concerns about the site. I don't want to speak about that site. I'm here to give you another alternative site. I'm here to help, in my view, to help the process. I'm not here to criticize. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. When I read the selectmen's mission to this committee, it talked about soliciting input from the residents of the town of Falmouth. And that's why we've had this second meeting. Also, it talked that the committee was to return locations and recommendations, plural, recommendations of locations of more than one site. And that hasn't been done, but from what I've heard tonight, there seems to be a change in that we might be looking at other sites. That's good. If anything comes of all these meetings, that's good. So can I give you my 2 cents on my site? It's a site you rejected. I differ a little bit with the reasons why you rejected them. That's my opinion, that's your opinion. The site that I propose is a school administration building. Okay? The building is not what I'm considering. It could be, let me say it this way. I'm not saying that building should be the police station. But I went there, I went to school there, I go by there every day, very well associated. If you look at the ball field, that ball field, and I measured this with a registered engineer on the computer, not with a tape measure, that ball field and that land is 4.2 acres. You're not cutting down 5 acres of trees. You're not impacting the carbon footprint of building this. It's relatively flat land. It gives you access and egress to Sandwich Road and Route 28. One of the criticisms of that site was traffic congestion. Well, can anyone tell me a road in Falmouth today doesn't have traffic congestion? Because Waze doesn't know about it. So that site, if it was the location of the police station on 4.2 acres, might be large enough for you to put the building that you have drawn now. I'm not the architect. You already have a 2-story building, so therefore you have an elevator.
Joe, could you try to wrap it up in a couple of minutes?
So if we maybe make 3 stories, smaller footprint, maybe that building can fit on there. The second thing is the building itself, expensive to remodel. Well, it's on the registry of deeds. I contacted people in the CPC. The money to refurbish that building, we're not going to throw it away. We have to maintain it. That money would come from CPC funds and not part of the money to build this police station. And any police response to anything south of Route 28 in East Falmouth has to go down Route 28 no matter where you put a police station. If 55% of the homes in Falmouth are east of Sandwich Road, the people of East Falmouth would definitely appreciate a police station closer to them. And very quickly, the page from the Selectmen's packet, and I'll end with this, that talks about the ad building site, says meets minimum requirements, no endangered species, no protection, no wetland area. And by the way, the sewer is down on Alphonse Avenue, which you could probably hit a pitching wedge from that site to Alphonse Avenue. No, the sewer does not go by there. But I think the site should be revisited. I don't think the location's that bad. Maybe the administrative offices of the police station could be put into the ad building. So the footprint of the police part, the jail part, the salary, when you come in with your cruisers, you know. And the experts on this committee did a great job in designing a police station. Yep. All of us who live in Falmouth know this town and we know the sites. Thank you for the consideration.
So if I could just respond to a couple of things. I actually have some experience with the site that he's selecting. First, I want to thank everybody from the bottom of my heart for coming here tonight, and the police department does appreciate your support. This is an amazing town. I'm honored to be the temporary caretaker. One of the reasons that site, 484 Brick Kiln, it just kept calling us. It just kept saying, look at me. We're centrally located for you folks. If we're going to have trainings, if we're going to have community engagement events, if we're going to have select board meetings, it just was a good site. But I'd like to address a couple of things. One, I was involved in the construction of the Westboro Police Station, a historic building. It was a municipal project. I will tell you when I'm researching it today on the absolute change orders that came about in that building. Once we dive into those walls and we get in there, whether it be asbestos or we found a well, we found all kinds of issues, you're talking probably millions of dollars over what we're proposing now. And that location is just not conducive for a police station. We want to get away from that heavily congested area and have a centrally located area for you folks as well. And I'll tell you, I'm a proud resident of East Falmouth, right? I'm right up in Fisherman's Cove. I love it up there, and I promise you we're going to have officers, in that area, and that we're trying to address some of the concerns moving forward for not just the next few years, but for the next 50 years. And that's why we really looked hard at all these sites. And this one particular site just rose to the top of the list. And with the technology that we have in place now, not only are we able to make sure that that drinking supply is safe, but it's also safe with testing measures for other development in that area. And don't forget, We will now be able to patrol that area on UTV and ATVs and different things to
Thank you, Chief.
ensure our water sources.
Chief,
safe.
I don't want to interrupt, but I want to get to some comments and questions
I'm
from the
done.
audience. Thank you. So I'm going to be here till they chase me out. So who's next? Mr. Lowell?
Hello, Nick Lowell, live up in Hatchville. Thank you very much, committee, and yeah, along with, I think everybody here, I support putting in a new police station. There's no question about that. I do not support putting it along Long Pond, but I wrote a letter about that. My question is regarding the size of the property. 4.5 acres. I'm wondering if there's any room for that to be shrunk down. In particular, from the proposed layout, the number of visitor parking spaces, I couldn't count them, but it was a lot. And the current station, we have maybe 6, 10. I mean, it depends how much you want to count for the rec center. But it, like at a minimum, that parking area looks like it could be a lot smaller. So is there a way that this could be compressed down to a 3-acre parcel? That's my question. Thank you.
Sure, I could address that. So we did look at ways in which that we could reduce the footprint of the overall site development to the maximum extent possible. Some of the challenges you have with the police station is there's a lot of ground floor program space, right? You don't want to be putting your lockup down up on a second floor down in a basement where the officers are transporting, those detainees that may be a little bit combative up and down stairs and in elevators and things like that, as well as all your public amenity spaces and things like that. So the problem is when you start bringing a station up 2, 3, 4 stories, you start to have those operational breakdowns for things that need to be near the public access, need to be down on the ground floor. It creates a lot of issues for officer safety and things like that. In addition to that, when you start going up additional floors, you start to have operational inefficiencies between departments that need to coordinate and collaborate with each other effectively. So there's operational challenges with that. Having said that, we did look at ways to reduce the overall site development as much as possible. If we looked at a 3-story facility, if we took all of the stormwater systems that would accompany the entire site development and put that underground, if we took away all the green space within the parcel, we calculated out the minimum that it could be, and it was something like 4.2 acres. So we weren't really significantly reducing a lot of that. In terms of the public parking spaces that are out there, so the staff parking spaces, those are a simple metric, right? How many officers are there? How many cruisers are there? What does that look like at shift change when the staffing doubles for that? The public spaces serve a number of functions. One, anybody that's coming to the police station in search of aid, criminal records, reports, things like that, making criminal complaints, right? That's a small population. That's what you have going into the police station currently. A modern police facility, and one that we're proposing here, has a large training room associated with it so that they can actively train their officers on a regular basis in a classroom setting. You've got a small one of those now, but it only serves a small portion of the police population within that department. This would be able to better accommodate the staff. And it's not just for their staff. This is also a public amenity. So you would have a large public meeting room where the public can come in, have public events, things like the Cub Scouts. Chief's talked about doing movie night with the kids, things like that. Ways to bring the town of Falmouth into the police station in a positive way and reinforce some of those community policing engagement protocols that the department is trying to build so that they can have a better relationship with their community in the building that you're funding and supporting. In addition to that, a lot of those trainings that the police department conducts aren't just for this group, right? It's not just for the police department serving Falmouth. A lot of them are nationally sponsored trainings in national programs, and that invites in a lot of officers from surrounding communities to help train there as well. Those you would also want to keep out in the public parking lot, so they wouldn't be able to go and park in the secure lot in the back of it. So you may not see the need with the current station, but a modern 21st century police facility has a lot more amenities to serve the public that would require them to come there and utilize some of that. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that, Chief?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head with all of that, and that's exactly it. It's 21st century policing. this facility is going to serve us, for hopefully, 50, 60 years.
Next question, comment. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Can you hear me back there? All right, thank you. And thank you and good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to provide these comments. I'm Joanne Muramoto, President of the 300 Committee Land Trust, and I'm here to present a statement from the 300 Committee's Board of Directors concerning the need for better protection of the Long Pond watershed and our conservation lands. For 40 years, the 300 Committee Land Trust has carried out our mission to permanently preserve and protect open space in Falmouth. We have helped to protect more than 2,700 acres of open space, partnering with the town and other organizations, and administering the land bank, which purchased over 900 acres for open space. Town meeting has approved every open space conservation proposal made with our assistance since 1985. We have a long history of helping the town to protect public drinking water supplies and water quality throughout the town and around Long Pond. We help to preserve the following parcels around Long Pond: the Swift Chute Preserve on the west side of Long Pond, the Seth Harvey parcels north of Brick Kiln Road, and most recently in September of this year, the Robichaux parcel on the north side of Brick Kiln Road, which the 300 Committee pre-acquired and then sold to the town for drinking water protection. The town also received a state drinking water protection grant to purchase this parcel. Town meeting approved the purchase of the Robichaux parcel. So far, the town has had a great record of preserving open space and protecting drinking water. However, this project flies in the face of your excellent record. By the way, this letter was submitted to the Select Board earlier this afternoon. Citing this project in the watershed to our most important drinking water source defies reason. Including conservation lands such as land bank parcels in the dog park in your consideration of potential sites goes against the votes of your citizens. The town needs a new police station to protect public safety, and I agree with everything that has been said by previous speakers, especially Joe Netto, concerning the need for a new police station. But we also need clean drinking water and open space to protect the health and well-being of our residents. We urge the Select Board to adopt permanent protection of the Long Pond watershed and other drinking water sources in order to protect our drinking water. We also urge the Select Board to honor the votes of our citizens to protect open space, including already designated conservation lands, including land bank parcels and others. Such land should not even be considered for siting of municipal or private development. Respectfully submitted, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Joanne. I'm going to work the left side of the room. Anybody on the left side of the room? Yes, sir. You want to come down? Thank you.
Robert Golder. What I've heard tonight indicates that a one-for-one exchange has been considered to take the old police station out of service and replace it with a new facility. I respect what the committee has done. I've served on such committees. I respect what it is to be a municipal employee, which I was for City of New Bedford for about 10 years, although not with the police department. But what I'm missing here is what I saw in New Bedford, a slightly larger community, but with a lot of issues and difficulties and challenges in citing municipal functions. And that is simply, as regards the police department, to have more than one building, more than one facility spread throughout the community. So I'm wondering whether it has been at all considered to retain and modify the existing building and to create a substation, a smaller building and facility somewhere in the town where we don't have the environmental compromises that would be necessary to completely move all functions of the police department to a new location. I'm not sure if that vision, based on what I've heard tonight, has even been considered, and I respectfully suggest that if not, that it be considered. Thank you for your service, gentlemen.
Thank you for your comments regarding that. The committee did, early on, we discussed many options with both the Veritex, ROPM, and Tecton over the possibility of that replacing a police station. The first thing that comes to mind is where are we going to put the police department when we tear that building down? That is not a small task at hand to relocate a police facility to somewhere else in town to accommodate a rebuild on the property. And if you recall one of the earlier slides that I presented earlier, the expansion of the police department to provide 21st century policing to the town of Falmouth won't fit on the existing site as it is now. It's small. The existing police station is 17,000 square feet plus or minus, and we're looking at a 43,000 plus police facility to accommodate the current needs and the future growth of the town. Thank you.
And thank you, Boyd. In the renovations, if that was part of the question, a possibility, we did cut out some slides. It was 69 slides you had to sit through. We cut out some slides that showed physically what the interior of that facility currently looks like. So the renovation option was not even on the table. Next question or comment. Yes, sir, Ed?
Evening, I'm Ed DeWitt. I live in Precinct 1. I want to thank you all for this task that you've taken on. It's really an important task for the town of Falmouth. And saying, how many committees have you been on, Boyd, in terms of that? And Mike, I mean, it's just amazing. I don't think we built anything without you, so thank you. Chief, I have a question. Do you map calls by urgency in the town, and are there clusters of the town where you have to go on an urgent basis?
Yes.
Okay. Was that made available to the committee in terms of finding this best spot that you've been talking about?
So we did. We've provided a lot of data, as Captain DaCosta spoke about when we did our internal staffing study, that site, just it made the most sense. And like I said, not just for us, for you folks. And when we talked about the parking spaces, that's for free training for us. Someone had called me and asked me about the Falmouth Police Academy. We don't train in the summer. We're all hands on deck all summer long. There's a police academy in Falmouth. Those training rooms are used. We need our own facility to be able to train our officers, is why we really felt that area was very mutually conducive for other folks to come in to train as well.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, but I think that's important, that the center of the town isn't really the center of where the police are needed. And I just wanted to make that point. There's two properties that I heard that are already developed, Morse Pond and the school admin building. And I'm going to be making the argument that you really should be taking a hard look at developed properties before we develop something particularly that's in a water protection area. This community, and you weren't here for it, Chief, we dealt with Joint Base Cape Cod. And they kept saying, don't worry about the pollution, we've got it in hand. And guess what? They didn't have it in hand, because once the pollution is in the ground, you don't get it out. It's going to end up in the reservoir. So no matter what efforts are made, and stormwater management, and Peter McConerty is an expert on stormwater management, but it's not fail-safe. And if you can avoid that, then we should avoid it at all costs. Converting a school, if you read the literature, there's great benefits that come from that. First of all, you generally get a larger police department or police building than what you would have gotten in the building it from ground up, particularly if you can renovate it. You get physical training space. You get classroom training space. You get firearms training space. You have parking. You have the ability to have a large command center. You have communications center. And you can bring as many officers from outside in for training because you have this extra room. You can put your divisions with separate spaces. And for the most part, it saves money because you don't have any site development costs, and refurbishing can be, although we've had some debate over whether refurbishing the high school was cheaper or tearing it down, and we know that, but generally it's supposed to be cheaper. Was there any consideration of combining or looking for the North Falmouth, West Falmouth Fire Station and the police department as a public safety complex?
Well, as that's a need for the town of Falmouth, speaking as behalf of a 38-year member of the fire department, we'd love to see another fire station built in the northwest corridor of the town. However, that was not a charge to this committee, and nor was that discussed.
Okay. Well, I think those are some of the things that we need to be thinking about. What are the long-term needs for the town and how they fit together? We have an inadequate courthouse. Sometimes police departments and courts are combined, and they're called justice centers and those kinds of things. God knows the courthouse in this town is inadequate, and it's been inadequate, and we would be able to get some state money if we were able to do that. It would affect probably some site things. So I'm just throwing some things out. I think that we need to sort of look at those development ones. The biggest objection I saw was 7 years for Morse Pond, and Morse Pond is probably the better choice. By the way, we're going to have to deal with the admin building at some point as a historic building. Whether it's a police station or something else, it's going to have to be dealt with, and that cost is going to have to happen. So I think really, I hope you take a hard look at developed properties and look for those options. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeWitt. On the side of the room, the gentleman in the blue jacket. Yes, sir.
My name's Eric Peterson. I live in Marquardt. The gentleman that was up earlier with the idea of a substation, I think it definitely should be considered. Maybe we could build a substation and temporarily get you guys out of the station you have now and rebuild there. That site is perfect.
I'll answer it. It's not a perfect site. It's very congested. That building is going to have to be torn down. Again,
definitely torn down, new building.
Yeah, I have some experience with this as well. The current admin building's 14,000 square feet. We'd have to add 30,000 square feet to it. And once you dive into that building, I was there with Forbes. It's a former school in Westboro. You're going to find all kinds of mitigating, cost overruns. The other issue is we were in an office park in Westboro. We lost power quite a bit in Westboro. We had no generator. There's a huge cost. We were paying thousands and thousands of dollars a month. That was part of the construction costs that we're just throwing money out. We have to stay in our current facility until we build a new building. It's I think 23,000 square feet, which is half of what we need, but it's a police station. It's a crappy police station, but it's a police station. So we're gonna put good money into bed. We're gonna keep it clean. Greta Endicott's unbelievable with some of the issues that we have to deal with there, but that's where we're gonna have to stay until we can get out. But we really would like to get out of the downtown area in a more centralized location, like I said, operationally, and for you folks as well. So a substation, again, having 2 police stations in Falmouth. I know the city of Worcester has 1 police station, right, with 500-600 police officers. I think we need to be together in 1 station. I think a substation doesn't work. Our substations are cruisers in our 5 sectors. That's just my opinion.
The other gentleman in the blue jacket has his hand up. Thank you.
My respects to the committee. Great job so far. My name's Jim Cummings. For 24 years, I was the sheriff of Barnstable County. And during that time, I had the pleasure of building a new correctional facility, and it's just outside the main gate of base Cape Cod on the south side. It's 180,000 square feet. It holds, when I was there was mostly 700 inmates there. It had a kitchen, a medical unit, a separate building with all of the mechanical things that ran the place. And it was built on top of the Cape Cod Soul Aquifer. And with the equipment that they have today in engineering, and that was back then, 20 years ago, it was never an issue. There was never a problem there, relative to the water. So I think we can rest assured that it's not going to hurt our water source. And to answer Joe's question, I could think of one road that doesn't have a lot of traffic, Brick Kiln Road. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Center of the room.
He's right.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Lowell?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. Vicki Lowell, Precinct 1. I wondered if anybody's at all tried to calculate the value of the environmental services that the 5 acres are providing for the watershed. We just dismiss that as open land, but there's no better protection for Long Pond than leaving the forested acres where they are. And over time, we all know that maintenance of things, we're talking about 30, 40, 50-year time frames. Not all this wonderful infrastructure always holds up as well as we think it should. And I've been in town meeting a long time, and I've seen all the efforts we've made to protect the water supply. I even remember back when F.V. Lawrence had his land on the west side of Gifford Street, just north of Goodwill Park, and he came in and he wanted industrial zoning. And the town said, no, in fact, when you got a permit for gravel there, it had been a gravel site, you said you'd give it to the town if you could take out the gravel. So he had to retreat with his tail between his legs. But, the effort, we always assumed that land was protection for the water supply. And we didn't think we had to put restrictions on it. And now if we start nibbling with these 5 wonderful acres for this project, what else will be nibbled at? That's so that I just think we're undervaluing the value of the forested land that we've protected. Thank you.
Center left. I'm trying to work all sides of the room. Center left. Anybody back here? Mr. Rafferty.
Gentlemen and ladies, thank you for your service. You guys were picked by the select board to do an evaluation. You did a good job. I applaud you. I don't know if this is the best location, but I do want to speak to what I've heard from several people about the concerns about the water resources in this community. There's a gentleman sitting in the second row right here who I bow down to, because years ago, he looked at where water was flowing and where water was going to different resources, including Long Pond, and that resulted in a series of overlay districts, water resource protection districts, because they went to wells and whatnot. The state, as Peter adequately just demonstrated, considers Long Pond to be a surface water supply with these zone A, Bs, and Cs. In fact, it's a groundwater supply. There's no stream in, there is no stream out, and there is a mapping of where the groundwater flows to it over time. back when the town did not have a filtration plant and they only had a surface water supply unfiltered, the state approved a watershed protection plan because of the fact that there was no filtration plant available. We now have a filtration plant. We now know where water comes from and goes. While the town was allowing developments, I should say the town allowing, while developments were occurring inside the zone of contribution for Long Pond, the town was unable to get them to put nitrogen reducing septic systems in because it was a town overlay district and not a state requirement, because the state treated it as a surface water supply. We have a group of people here talking about the fact that they want to put in containment for the ground, for the things, monitoring wells, tie into the sewers. You look across the street, there's a high school. I don't know how many people drive by the high school. How many cars are in that parking lot every day? 1, 2, 5? Many more than the police station will ever have. The police station's offering to capture all of that and make sure it's treated properly to not cause any problems. But yet, the school parking lot sits right on top of the zone of contribution for Long Pond, and it's not captured and it's not treated. So, I don't know if this is the best location, but if people are concerned that building this police station at this location with the conditions that people have said they're going to do, monitoring wells, tight tanks tied to the sewer, is somehow or other going to jeopardize Long Pond, I would say there's multiple developments along Gifford Street, to the east of Gifford Street, and on Gifford Street Extension that we could not get to control the nitrogen reduction on them. That if we could have, would be far better than worrying about 4 acres right now.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, to the lady who caught me rolling my eyes, I've got a back issue tonight and I'm kind of struggling, so give me some grace, please. Next question, comment. Yes, sir.
So I'm Chris Neal. I live in Precinct 1, and I've lived in town for about 35 years and written about the environment for most of those years. And what I want to say is more of philosophy than a regulatory comment. I know what the regulations say is permissible, but I just want to say that the philosophy of siting municipal facilities on forest, very close to watersheds, should be philosophically sort of not our first priority, I guess. I think open land provides all these benefits. I think Vicki described this very, very well. We just ought to be looking to site these kinds of facilities on already developed land. We have the school administration building. We're going to have Morris Pond available. Both are central, both are large, already on pavement. You know, every time we look for a ball field, we look for a new fire station on Sandwich Road, you know, the open space that's providing all these benefits suffers. And I think we just need a different way of looking at thinking about siting these municipal facilities, and that includes this project. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Hello? Okay, cool. Hi, I'm Lynn Francis. I've lived here all my life, and I lived in East Falmouth. I do have quite a number of questions as I was watching the presentation that you guys did. Great job. One of the things that I noticed is that with all the parcels besides parcel 14, which is the one you're speaking of, you only talked about the negatives. What are the negatives of parcel 14 and what are the positives for the other ones? Maybe it's because of the fact that we're just doing a 45-minute presentation, but that's okay. In addition, and I also have a few other more questions. Specifically, what are the alternatives? Yes, you did give us like a huge amount of parcels, but specifically, which parcels are you looking at? The town manager said that there's 1 and 2, so can you please be able to show that in the PowerPoint so then we could be able to see it? A couple other things. Why is it that, so I was hearing that we need training events, we need public outreach and all this stuff. Why does those particular avenues need to be in one facility? There has been discussion about breaking it up. Why must we have it all in one place instead of having different departments in different areas, which makes sense that you can't necessarily do it up and around, but like training, why does training need to be next to it? Another other thing. There's a parcel that you were talking about, which is the water treatment plant parcel. It's right next to the parcel that you're talking about, which is parcel 14. You list out all the negatives. How is it that those negatives are not with parcel 14 when it's directly next to it? In addition to the fact that when you're talking about parcel 14, you're also indicating and lining up right next to the Long Pond Marston's Mills, Long Pond's water area. Are you saying that you're going to be able to, are you saying that you're taking that whole parcel? Yes, currently right now, today, you're taking 1,500 feet away, but what happens in those 10 to 15 years? What happens in those 25 to 30 years when you guys are not around and we have another group? Will those people still have the same idea as to be able to protect that area? What, are you guys going to be able to give up part of that area so then it is actually protected? That's also another question that I have. And yeah, that's really about it.
Yeah. So my name is Michael Duffany. It's important to understand, to your point, how we settled on these, what some of the positives were, what some of the negatives were. Like the rest of the committee, I went into this with an open mind about where we would be selecting the parcels, but never did I ever think within this quadrant that we would find a parcel of land. It wasn't on the radar screen, okay? And that was because, like everyone else, I thought that all these parcels were protected. I believe in open space protection. I believe in the watershed protection and so forth. I will say that some of the parcels that have positives, if you will, have more negatives. This one here, the only negative that I can find on this particular piece is the fact that the road is 150 feet to the north of where it would be ideal. If it was 150 feet to the south and this parcel were on the north side of the existing road, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. Okay, so we're not talking like this is, that we're putting this on top of the pond, okay? Because there's a lot of things across the street. There's a big subdivision next door that has, maybe 15 houses. I didn't do a count on it. All on old Title V systems. We're not worried about it. This is not the parcel that we wanted, but the chief indicated it earlier that every time we would go through this exercise, this piece over here on Brick Kiln Road would be like, hey, what about me? And it'd be like, you're in the wrong area. And then you go through other criteria, sight lines, well, what about me? This is in the center. If you drop a pin in the center of Falmouth High School is in the center of Falmouth. Okay, so in terms of being able to get to everybody equally, you couldn't find a better area, if you will. Would I like this piece to be on the other side of the road, to not have this conversation? I absolutely would. But I have come to the understanding and to the agreement, if you will, that this is, of all the sites that we have access to, not all the sites that are out there, but all the sites that we have access to, this is the best site. Could we buy sites and take down the buildings that are there? Yeah, but those people aren't in the room tonight, and those are not our charge. Okay, I don't want to. Any other parts of your question? I want to, please.
One more question. Is this particular parcel the largest acreage out of all the choices?
No, because we had 300-acre sites. We had others that are similar, and we're not talking about taking the site. We're talking about a piece of the site that would be used for this. And I'm totally understanding that if this does go through, this will be the last thing that's built within this quadrant. I can't see the possibility of any other municipal building or anything else going.
Yeah, exactly. How can you guarantee that?
I'm sorry?
How can you guarantee that it won't be other parts of it?
Because I think you're going to find that by next April town meeting, there's going to be articles that are going to prohibit the use of any of the land around this pond. You know, and again, we thought it was protected, and it's not. And it is a buildable site. Is it my first choice? No, it's not.
Also, is it the cheapest to build on?
Of all the sites that we looked at, the topography of this site is probably the most favorable. Again,
So the cheapest.
positives. You know, I walked this site. There are no erratics on this site whatsoever. Erratics being rocks the size of Volkswagen sticking out of the ground or anything, if you will. I saw nothing. And as a builder, I've learned to understand what I'm looking at on a site before I go and build on it. And to the west of this site here, the next site was full of erratics because it's more into the moraine. This one here is in the beginning of the outwash plain. It has very favorable soils in that respect there, that we're not going to have additional costs that we would at several of the other sites. You know, that the treatment plant, the one out on 151, and there are other negatives of those, which again, this did not have any of those negatives. I mean, I wish I could tell everybody, myself included, what I want to hear, but the truth of the matter is, I need to tell you the truth, and we need to deal with the facts, not our emotions, but the facts. And a lot of this is emotional. It was emotional for me as well, okay, because we just shouldn't do this, okay? Any other?
No, I just, never mind.
One of the great questions. One of the questions she asked, I believe, was some of the other sites that are under consideration that didn't make the slideshow.
Can't we break it up in like the training in other areas?
So let me address the other sites. So as I said when I kicked off my brief talk, my ask of the committee was to come up with 2 or 3 additional sites beyond the Brick Kiln site, because we hear you, we hear the concerns. The dog park site was one of those that didn't make the final, what was it, 16? I think we brought that back into consideration, the dog park site. Article 97 protections and some issues. And there's a couple others that weren't, the group hasn't vetted yet, and I don't want to set expectations and drop those in a slideshow until the group has a chance to do its due diligence and vet those a little bit more. So there are a couple additional sites that we're looking at, just want everyone to know. And my ultimate goal is to get these options, recommendations, plural, to the select board sometime prior to town meeting. That's not a large amount of time in between now and town meeting, but we're looking to do that. So rest assured, there are some additional sites that are being looked at. Next question, comment? Mr. Hargraves? And I'm sorry, I'm trying to bounce back and forth on different sides of the room.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes? Okay, first of all, I'd like to provide some balance here, because I've heard everything, and I wouldn't dispute anything that's been said, but I'd like to make a strong affirmative statement for the recommendations of the committee, and I'll tell you why. First of all, these people who are on the committee were selected by the select board, who seem to have some issue accepting the conclusions of this expert group that brought together with consultants and other experts to do a job. And now we are questioning the result. It's good to ask questions, and I heard some of the innovative questions that were asked about the location of the police station and whether we should have multiple police stations. And many of these questions, actually, if you came to the Finance Committee open meetings, you would have heard those asked by me of the police chief and others who were there. And, you know, the answer I got was, we have an urgent situation. It's an unhealthy, unsafe environment that people are working in. I am a big fan of strategic thinking and locating multiple municipal services on one site and maybe getting economies of scale. Believe me, all of this was brought up, and the answer was, you know, we know what it takes to do policing. We know how to do this, and we have an urgent need. And so I don't have the arrogance to stand up here and tell you that after you've looked at almost 600 sites, I have a better site for you, or how you should do policing and deliver services to the community. I think I just accept that as a given. And I know the people on this committee, I've seen them on other committees, and I think you've elevated the art of understanding the needs and bringing together a structured analysis of the alternatives and how they meet the need and scoring them and making an engineering kind of analysis of everything. Nothing is perfect. There are going to be some trade-offs, and I'm sorry to say that. It's provocative when we're talking about the environment, but I think a calculated risk is a fair thing to take when I walk into the parking lot. It's a calculated risk. Where was all this indignation when the select board approved wastewater outwash for the Y? I guess everyone wanted a Y, but they weren't there saying, oh, it's just a few hundred feet further away in the same watershed. And so, you know, to me, it's a logical absurdity to be having a debate about this, which is well qualified by a committee who did their work, by a needs statement and the support of the customers for that work, our police department, and then further to the point I made about I'm not just making a gratuitous swipe at the Y. I think Mr. McConerty said we're going to be monitoring the wells that will pick up the sewer, septic, and the other kinds of groundwater that would be across the street, and we'll see if there's a developing problem. We have a sewer connection coming in, and we can utilize that in the area. Sure, we can prohibit further development, but this seems like the ideal site. It meets all regulatory requirements. There's not going to be a delay because we have to go and seek some special legislation or permission, and I just don't know what the fuss is all about. So I hope that I've been convincing in my support for this location. It just seems like it makes sense and it meets the requirements, and if it's an urgent need for the safety of municipal employees, then we should do it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Linda Vintro, and I live on Brick Kiln Road. I had a question as to, you said there were good sites and moderate sites. Which one is this? Which category was it in?
I'd have to say it fell into the good site category.
You sure?
Again, as my esteemed committee member to my right here said, every time we talked about parcels, and this parcel was always rising to the top of the pile, and we did walk away from it for a while, and then we came back to it because again, it just kept rising to the top of the evaluation. And one of the things that we didn't mention, it was in one of the slides. We're looking at 4.5 acres of property out of a 101-acre parcel in the very northern part of that parcel. There's no plan to clear cut 4.5 acres of trees. There's a plan in place. We've discussed it, working with Peter's staff and the tree warden and others to pick the trees, go through there and selectively clear what we need to clear and no more. That again was one of the committee's discussions early on when this parcel came back around. That we don't want to do that. We know that, and it just this parcel just kept coming to the top of the pile. I don't know how else to describe it. It just we could, as hard as I tried to make it go away, it just kept coming back.
And I understand that, I do. I hope you will consider some of these other things that have been brought forth. I too have walked that land. My dog and I love everything that Falmouth has done to preserve open space. It's a wonderful asset to this town. Thoroughly agree that we need a new police station that will be growing. Lived through Middleborough doing this. I moved here from Middleborough some time ago. But I I also feel like Brick Kiln has become, let's shove it on Brick Kiln. Let's have a YMCA. Let's have 40B in Josiah. And as for traffic versus the Sandwich Road and 28 intersection, have you tried to get out of the Oxbow? If you're going in that direction? I do it all the time. It's not easy. It's a lot easier now, but it's not easy. Police cruisers can, but you've got it's a one-way road. So I just would like to ask you to keep considering a few other parcels, especially that they've just come up.
I just wanted to offer for clarification, but not to correct the chair. I think that the good, moderate, and fair, those were really, really early categorizations. They weren't something that we carried through, probably back in February, really. And the ones that came up in the good was like Woods Hole Road next to the fire station, right? So those were really great sites for all of the kind of, all those other purposes. But then you take one look at it and say, well, we can't consider that. And so I think by definition on the slide, this Brick Kiln Road site is actually in the moderate because it did have issues. That's why it, why we weren't initially looking at it and why you keep hearing like it keeps coming back, because it wasn't. So I think just a technicality for accuracy, it was probably a moderate and not a good initially.
But just keep in mind, Brick Kiln's gonna have a sewer lift station. We're gonna have now potentially a police station. We have a winery. I love the winery. And we have the YMCA. You're increasing traffic on a road that really wasn't built for it.
Left side of the room. Yes, ma'am. Put your hand up. Yes.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm Melissa Freitag. I'm in Precinct 6, relatively close to this site. So it's kind of NIMBYism, but not exactly. I'd like to sort of play off of a couple of other comments, and I'll start with the prior speaker speaking about Brick Kiln Road. 20 years ago, when I was on the Historical Commission, I learned that Brick Kiln Road is one of the last scenic byways in Falmouth. Okay, it is probably no longer, but it is officially designated as a scenic byway in town. But we have ripped out, or we've allowed 6 or 7 acres to be ripped out of forest north of Long Pond for this 28-house development that's there. We're about to lose another 5 or 6 acres of forest, filtering forest for the YMCA. We, perhaps not with our best wisdom, installed a plastic playing field north of the watershed. And as a prior speaker mentioned, yes, decades ago we did fight against this plume that's still working its way down. There is somebody here who looked at the topography of the land and the way water flows. I would really like to respectfully request that this committee, thank you for all your work, really re-examine, I believe you call it 650 Gifford Street, because the way the water flows and the groundwater flows into Long Pond, it comes down from the north into Long Pond, the north and the east, and it flows towards Long Pond. But once you get halfway down Long Pond, approximately where the new water station is, everything starts shifting away from Long Pond. So all runoff goes in the other direction towards where the town is sewering neighborhoods, towards, oh, is it Little Pond over there? I don't know which watersheds are in that general direction. But basically, if Long Pond is a rectangle, it's the right side of the rectangle, everything that you build there flows away, as opposed to the top side of the rectangle, everything flows into Long Pond. I'd really, really, really like to have you folks look at previously disturbed plots that are perhaps flowing away from our water supply. I think Rachel Carson is probably rolling in her grave right now, knowing that we're risking potentially our water supply for the future. I mean, we're talking we would love to see people living here for hundreds of years. And if we don't have a clean water supply, I mean, our water supply is being threatened from below with sea level rise. I mean, we've got our little lenses that are being that are going to have saline incursion. We don't need to risk our surface water supply with more development. And I really think that it's critical that we preserve our watershed area. I mean, I drove past that spot today to come here, and there is a green sign or a blue sign right at one of those little turnouts, Town of Falmouth watershed, water protection area. I mean, you're talking about building in the water protection area. I really would like you to look at the 650 Gifford Street again, perhaps also the school building again, because of course there is traffic everywhere. I mean, you guys have the blue lights, woo! You can move traffic away from that. And of course, you mentioned that it's centrally located, really close to the high crime neighborhood of West Falmouth, I'd say, is this site. But it's just been a really surreal evening listening to you folks talking about paving paradise. And actually, on Gifford Street, we have parking lots that aren't being used by the Steamship Authority right now that are over 4 acres in size. I know that you were assigned a task. Your mission was to look at properties that the town owns. But one can swap properties with other entities. One can purchase properties. I mean, if you're talking about a $60 million building, I think a million or so to purchase property that's not going to harm our water supply would be something that town meeting would probably be interested in agreeing to. I think you're going to find that town meeting might have some difficulty with this current proposal. But I'd like you to consider looking further and more closely at properties that don't flow into our water supply. And I do support, though, a new police department. And the concept of a complex with the courthouse and perhaps that Jones Road property in that general area, that's also very central. Think outside the box a little bit.
I think we are. We have.
Yeah, I know, but
we really have. I promise you.
You've been working on this for 10 months now. I mean, some of you on the committee know who I am. Other people here know who I am. I've been on many, many, many committees over the decades. 10 months is nothing, guys. It's nothing.
Can I just address that quickly,
Yeah.
very quickly? 10 months, I know isn't a long time, but we're on borrowed time.
Yeah, I know.
And we need to get out of there. And Captain, with Tom McGuire, Detective McGuire, and the deputy and I, we spent, 2.5 hours today? Looking at every possible property, some of them that you folks have described. And if this isn't the site, this isn't the site. In our opinion, looking at it, it kept calling us. But I promise you, it's been over 10 months. I walked into this town June 5th of 2023, and I couldn't believe the working conditions of this police department. We can't wait 7 years for Morse Pond. I think that's a lousy location, too much traffic, same as I feel about the admin building. I've been doing this for 37 years. I've been a chief. I'm in my 14th season. This will be my 4th building project. I want to do it right. We've made some mistakes in the past, but I promise you we're going to do our due diligence. We're going to look at other sites, as the town manager stated, if that's not the will of the town.
If I may follow up to that, please. Regarding the traffic, Brick Kiln Road has a lot of really big, heavy truck traffic that goes down it. Those monstrous things that go back and forth between Lawrence Lynch in and out. You talk about traffic, you're going to see that everywhere. And also, one other place came to mind. Orleans, about a decade ago, expanded and rebuilt and renovated their police department. And I believe they stayed in the building as they did it. I don't know how they did it, but it might behoove some people to talk to other communities.
We have.
Yeah, I'm sure you have.
We have talked to Orleans, too.
Yeah, I don't know how they stayed there, but thank you for all you do.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just for clarity and accuracy, I should say, the Steamship Authority site on Gifford is not even 4 acres. It's a little over 3.0. So just for accuracy. Next question. Yes, KJ.
Hello, my name's Catherine Jansen. I'm an East Falmouth resident. I'm also the chair of the Falmouth Bicycle Pedestrian Committee, and I'd like to share some information with you about Brick Kiln Road that you might not know. Before that, I want to thank you folks for what I consider to be a very detailed and excellent presentation. So a key priority of Bike Ped Committee is creating protected east-west connectors for walkers and bike riders. You guys know we've got the Shining Sea, which is fabulous. That's north-south, and it's on the far edge of our town. For 2 years, we've been trying to get funding for a multi-use path on Brick Kiln Road between Gifford and 28A. Organizations that make grants unanimously love this project, but it doesn't quite meet their requirements. This multi-use path would support students and parents traveling to the high school athletes and recreational users, people going to the new YMCA, and eventually it'll connect to the Shining Sea Bikeway. Thankfully, Falmouth DPW will be helping by funding the preliminary design and getting this project on the tip eventually. The multi-use path could also support the new police station. And now I'm going to speak personally because our committee jurisdiction does not include location of town buildings. But I personally see the police station as a building block for a new community center area in Falmouth. Combined with the high school and the Y, plus multimodal transportation, it creates a locus of civic support that is easily accessible to Falmouth residents. I would refer you to a terrific book called The Death of Expertise. It was written a few years ago, and the author, a scientist, traces this trend back to the 1990s, 1980s. The basic premise is that, my personal opinion, is more important than the knowledge, the demonstrated knowledge of experts and expertise. I'll offer you a quick example. In one of the early Cape Cod Bridges meetings that Mass DOT held, they presented 4 different drawings and explained the rationale for each drawing. And a gentleman on the call said, quote, "I'm not an architect, but I've made some drawings I'd like you to look at." So I encourage all of us to respect expertise, to trust but verify, and verifying is good and questioning is good. But from what I can see, it's been a very thorough examination so far. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Yes?
Hi, Wendy Bissler, Precinct 2. Thank you again, as everybody has mentioned. I know this has been a very challenging job for you. I understand that you've done a lot of work, but I have to admit that I am very, very uncomfortable with this site. I really, really think we should look elsewhere in the town. There are other sites. I know you dismissed them out of hand, not out of hand, after some study, but still, I believe that you could do a little bit more diligence and investigate them a little further. The fact that already people have mentioned potential problems to the watershed from the high school, from the YMCA, from the housing development, why add to that? Why introduce another potential problem? We should be fixing the problems. If we think there's problems with the parking lot at the high school that could potentially leach into the groundwater, then that's something we should address. We shouldn't add to the problems in this area. And I'm really uncomfortable with the fact of this nibbling away concept like Vicki Lowell had mentioned. I don't like the thought that this side of the brick kiln should be developed at all. I think it should be kept pristine and kept in the condition it is currently. And I agree that we really need to look at sites that have already been developed. And I think it's worth it to even consider purchasing a site if it's going to protect our main source of our drinking water. That's something that is irreplaceable. It's worth untold millions of dollars. Why take the risk of potentially damaging that water source to save some money? I think we need to really step back and look thoroughly and investigate more sites and keep away from potentially polluting our drinking water. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My name is Don Farnell. I live in Fisherman's Cove. I'm a neighbor of the chief. I just want to say that I'm a retired landscape architect and site planner with over 48 years of experience in these kinds of projects. And I understand what everybody is talking about, and I agree with a lot of it and some not so much. Until about an hour and a half ago, I had never heard Article 97 and what it meant and what it's going to mean to this project if you have to go that route. So having said that, I would just like to ask, when the evaluations were done and you presented them, were there any sites that were marginally acceptable that didn't fall under the Article 97 guidelines?
There were certainly a bunch of sites that went up 28 that met the criteria, okay? The problem there, again, is the traffic.
On the west side.
That's on the west side, okay? So going up 28 on the west side, not to confuse the east side, which has similar but different issues with traffic, okay? But yeah, we looked at those. The town has a building that it owns at the water department. You know, would you consider putting a police station there in probably one of the worst intersections that we have and one of the most congested parts of town? You know, and so to the question, yeah, we looked at a lot of sites that met the criteria, but they, just like this site here, fell within a district that we really didn't want to consider. This site here just kept coming back as, without a doubt, of all the sites, of the 500 sites the town has that are available, the site here is far and above, you know, the best site that we could choose. And so we're trying, so then we beat up our consultants and so forth to try to find out, well, how are you going to protect the site? How are you going to make it so that this is not going to be an issue down the road? Okay? And I think that we've done a tremendous job. I think our consultants came back, if you will, and did a tremendous job showing us how they can do that, with the assistance also of our DPW, who's on top of these things. The problem we had with the dog park, okay, is that it is already designated as a drainage area for Brick Kiln Road, and it has over 20,000 gallons worth of, that's my understanding, has over 20,000 gallons worth of subground storage for groundwater coming off of Brick Kiln Road. So, you know, they continue to have other issues as we continue to look at them. You know, do we want the one on Gifford Street? Sure, that'd be great, but the Steamship Authority has no interest in selling it, and it's under the high tension lines, and it's a marginally sized site.
Right. Well, so here's where I'm going with it. What the presentation didn't show tonight, but was presented online, was a timeline for the project. Funding, so on and so forth, a year of design, and then I'm not exactly sure where Article 97 kicks in, but it sounds like that would be another 2 years.
No, if I may.
One less
So
year?
the 97 is if we pick a piece of land that was purchased either with land bank funds or has another, was bought with self-help funds from the state, if it was monies from another source at the state level, that piece is encumbered. Okay?
So is the Brick Kiln site, you showed the site plan of, not encumbered by Article 97?
That's correct. The site is free and clear.
Okay, so all of that does not apply? That 2-year review period does not apply?
No, the 2-year, I
It
think.
applies to some other sites we might otherwise consider.
Yeah, I think we're talking two different things. Okay, 97 is, I'm just going to use the dog park site as an example, okay? If we want their site, we have to find a like site, okay, go to the state legislature, get a 2/3 vote in the affirmative to be able to replace that site with a site that fits the bill in order for us to then use that. That's about a 2-year process to do that.
But it's not applicable on this particular site you're talking about?
No, correct.
Well, here's where I'm going, is that it's going to take a couple years anyway to go through the design, review, the bidding, all that kind of stuff. And every day that that happens is another day that the project gets more expensive. His department does not have the resources to do what he's trying to do. So having said that, I too appreciate all the work you people have done because I've been on that side of the table too. I ask you to take all of this into consideration that everybody has said and make a decision as quickly as you possibly can. I have no doubt the architects can design this building to the program established by the police department. I have no doubt that the civil engineers can design and do all the stuff and create the maximum protection. My request is to do it now. Thank you very much.
In the back, the maroon sweatshirt. Okay, we're going to swap. Yes, ma'am.
They've heard enough. No.
Slow tonight. Hello, Robin Rustad, West Falmouth. Frankly, I was really surprised to find out that this was not officially conserved land. Oh, and I just lost my notes walking down here. Sorry. I believe the land around Long Pond was specifically purchased by the town, approved by town meeting, to protect Long Pond. In 1929, there was a water commission, but in 1930, it was expanded and became the Committee on Long Pond Watershed Preservation, and they asked for funds, which they received, and actively began buying up land around the pond. Now, that was 95 years ago, so, you know, criteria may have changed, but actually I think we are much more aware now of the issues of water contamination, you know, speaking to the issues with the old Otis Air Force Base and TCE and all the various other chemicals which are percolating through our groundwater. And I think that a lot of people aren't aware that the topology and the hydrology of Cape Cod is not typical of the mainland because we are glacial moraine. And Mr. DeFaney, you know, spoke to the issue of these glacial erratics and that this lot, as opposed to the one slightly to the west, is, you know, more of the outflow area, smoother sand and better to build on. Nonetheless, the entire region the pond is not supplied by streams, it is supplied by groundwater. It is actually the manifestation of groundwater. It's an old glacial kettle pond, which was depressed and reaches down to the groundwater level. And everything around the pond, and yes, I'm concerned about the YMCA and all the other construction to the north because we have this lens of water that tends to drain from north, hence the Otis problem, down to Long Pond. And everything that's directly north of Long Pond, even if you have containment catchment basins and testing, I mean, if you're monitoring and you find that there's contamination, it's too late. You already have contamination in the soil percolating down into the pond. I think that, you know, back in 1930, they were worried about summer water shortages, and it's only getting worse. And every time you take away forested area and replace it with hardscaping, you can drain that water off to go into sewers and to be dumped off somewhere else, but you're reducing the amount of area that takes in rainwater and brings it down to the pond for our drinking water supply. I really think this land should have been officially conserved. I'm surprised there wasn't some sort of deed conservation on it, given that it was acquired for the preservation of Long Pond watershed back in, you know, in the 30s. I think it should be preserved now, and I'm really concerned, again, with, you know, the issue that some people have brought up, the nibbling away, that hopefully this is all that you plan to do. But what if in 10 or 15 years it looks like the police station really needs an additional building or a little bit more or so forth? So I understand it's been really difficult, and a lot of thought's gone into trying to find locations that would work. But I just feel like this really is not a great location for the new police station. I'm hoping that we can find something that really would work for the police and for the whole community. Thank you.
The comments, questions? Go in the back. Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'm Liz Beardsley, resident of East Falmouth, born and raised here. Thank you for your service. We need our police and value our police, and I've not seen, but heard about the conditions of the existing facility, and we absolutely need a solution. However, this next police building will be wherever it gets built for 60 years or longer. And if it's built in the watershed lands, it will be permanently changed. So I know you spent 10 months, but I think that some questions are coming up, and perhaps there could be some additional study, as mentioned. Protecting our water supply is paramount. We can't get that back, and it is a unique source of water here in Falmouth and on the Cape. And the best way to protect it is by preserving as much natural land of the watershed as possible, as was the original intent of town meeting in purchasing that property. And even with the stormwater protections and other methods, which can help substantially, it's not the same as having, the trees, soil, and natural land, and what that provides in terms of water quality compared to pavement, roofs, and the impervious surfaces. So I would urge the committee to consider another site and look again at some options. A couple suggestions on those lines. First, consider a detailed analysis of police calls and travel time, and apologize if that is in the studies you've done, but maybe you didn't have time to present tonight. I think that could help people understand the site selection and how that factored in. In particular, my understanding is police are generally out patrolling, and they answer calls from out in the town, not necessarily from the headquarters. So how does that factor into the location of the headquarters with respect to reaching those urgent calls that you need to get to? So that's just a question. So more data on that might help people better understand the site selection. Secondly, you could reconsider the building program and whether some of the ancillary uses might be located at a second site. Potentially the larger training spaces and community meeting space, if that could be at a different location. Perhaps there's a two-phase where there's the new main police headquarters, and then at the current site that's demolished and a new building would provide the training and meeting spaces, and then be able to take advantage of the rec center parking. So that's just another idea. And then another potential ancillary use that could be located elsewhere would be vehicle refueling, washing, and so on, maintenance. And then lastly, to broaden the search to include developed land, which could include non-town-owned parcels. As another speaker mentioned, that it could be worth it to the town to protect the water supply by, that could be considered an investment to be able to preserve the watershed land by finding a better site for the police station, especially if it is ideally located with respect to the call distribution and your needs in that regard. So thank you. Thank you again for the opportunity to comment and your presentation.
So the staffing study is online. If you go to the police department website, and a lot of that data that you're looking for will be there. I don't know if people realize we have a lot of major events here in Falmouth. So when we talk about that training room, I'll give you 4th of July, for instance. I have 25 state troopers in town, 10 Barnstable County, and then all our special reserve officers, and from me on down, the entire department. We'll be utilizing that classroom space for our large-scale events to do briefings and different things, whether it be the Falmouth Road Race or even Falmouth in the fall, but we have a lot of major events, the Holiday Stroll, where we have to bring in a lot of outside people, so we need space. And if you look at the staffing study, it'll explain a lot of that data to you and the crime base that we have. I don't want to scare anybody, but we're busy. We're really busy here in Falmouth. And like I said, we need a facility that is conducive to 21st century policing, and we need it sooner than later. And that site is too small that we're currently at, and to have multiple facilities I don't think would be cost effective. I think we're not that big of a department where we can house a fully functioning 21st century police station on one site.
Yes, Judy?
Everybody has come up and thanked you for your service, but I hope they fed you well while you were working on this, because I don't have offers or ideas of other sites, but I wanted to make one point. The sole decision on this lies with the select board, and right now they're split on this. I think it's going to take some time, but you have to get it to yes, so that the entire select board has to unanimously approve a site selection. You don't want to go into this fragmented. So I think it's on the part of the committee, maybe spreading parameters, looking at more private property, perhaps spending money, but taking the time to get the select board to yes is the biggest investment that you need to make.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? I normally, I'm kind of really shy, but you're getting ready to build your police station. I live at 474 Brick Kiln Road. Okay. I live at 474 Brick Kiln Road, where you're getting ready to build your new police station. And I agree that you do have to build there. But I've been living there since I was 13 years old. And I went to school in this building. But on that land, I've seen all kinds of deer, animals, everything that is back there. So when you build that building, you're going to destroy some of that. And you're going to destroy part of that water problem. I've seen buildings being built across the street from me. They got a YMCA going there. So there must be a lot of pollution. And then on my street, there is so much trash. I can't even get out of my driveway. So you need to consider that. I agree, you need to have your police station, but I think you need a new site because it's going to be so congested there. I even have the kids from the high school running down through that path behind where the buildings where you want to build. This is one of their training things. So you can do what you want, but please consider, that land. That land's been so precious. It's been vacant. It has. You know what? This year I even saw 2 deers in my yard. When's the last time you've seen a deer in Falmouth? So think really hard, okay, of what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Any other comments or questions? Do not want to miss anyone. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. So, folks, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. Your comments have all been tremendously insightful, well thought out. We're going to take them all into consideration as we move forward towards providing recommendations to the Select Board. So thank you for your time tonight.